Just want to talk about a strange story I found in the UK's Telegraph. It was actually a personal story from journalist Christopher Middleton that I thought was really interesting. I'm really not sure what to make of it, but according to Middleton, the story is completely true. The year was 1971, and Middleton claims he was traveling around communist Romania, then ruled by dictator Nicolae Ceausescu. Earlier in the day, at a marketplace, Middleton remembered being surrounded by security men. Everyone was lined up and required to show their papers and ID documentation. Some people, for whatever reason, were arrested and carted off in lorries. Needless to say, he was a little on edge during the trip. Later that same evening, he arrived in the town of Suceava. After registering at the local police station, something people were obligated to do back then, he was given directions to where he would be staying. There were no hotels for foreigners. People were just made to stay in the houses of assigned families. On this occasion, though, the police told Middleton that he would be staying in a forest campsite about 5 miles outside of the town. He hopped on a bus and made it out to the area just as it was getting dark. He recalled that there were about 50 little pointy-roofed huts dotted among the trees, and no one else was staying there. The place was almost entirely deserted. He went to the reception cabin where the clerk gave him a very large padlock. He made it clear to Middleton that he should definitely lock his door from the inside. When asked why, the man just made teeth-baring growling noises and mimicked what Middleton presumed were claw-pouncing actions of wild animals. Middleton admitted that his stay at the cabin, and no doubt the secluded location, was unnerving. At around 1 a.m., things would become downright bizarre. Quote, "I was already frightened, and at about 1 in the morning, I heard shuffling noises and definite movement just outside my window. Making sure the padlock was firmly attached, I peered through the flimsy cotton curtain, to be met by a pair of burning eyes level with my own. It was a full-grown wolf, standing upright with his paws on the side of my cabin, and there were maybe 20 or more, all foraging through the woods, clearly illuminated by the moonlight." Unquote. Certainly the sight of 20-plus large wolves foraging around one's cabin would be enough to send someone into a state of bewilderment. What came next is downright baffling. Quote, "Suddenly, though, they all stopped, as if at a given signal, and headed off into the depths of the forest. As they scurried back into the darkness, they passed the figure of a bearded man who was coming out of the trees, wearing what looked like a wolfskin himself, and with a large gold crucifix around his neck. The wolves just raced past him without a second look, giving him as wide a berth as they could. I was transfixed by his appearance, but terrified he was going to come over to the hut. But he just stood there, looked in my direction, brought the crucifix to his lips and kissed it, then disappeared behind a tree." Unquote. I guess it goes without saying that Middleton didn't get much sleep that night. The next morning, Middleton asked the man at the reception desk about this strange man outside his cabin, and even drew him a picture on a piece of paper, which he ripped up. "No, man," he insisted to Middleton. Confounded by the man's behavior, Middleton left. Later, he met with a family of East Germans who were the only other people staying at the forest site. They told him that they had been coming to the place for several years and that, at one time, there had been a monastery in the woods. Apparently, the monks who lived there refused to stop holding religious services for the local people, and some men came and took them away. According to the Germans, some of them, it was said, had been shot. It is now believed that one or more of these monks now haunt the local area woods. That was enough for Middleton, who grabbed his belongings and left well in advance of nightfall. So I had to wonder, when I read the story, I thought it was really interesting, but I had to wonder, is it just a coincidence? Were there a bunch of wolves outside his cabin at the same time that there was a man, a hobo, let's say, also hanging around his cabin? And was it just a coincidence that they were all there at the same time? If it was a coincidence and he was just like a random hobo, then why did the wolves react to him the way they did? Why did they give him such a wide berth? The author, Middleton, said that it was as if they'd been given a signal and then they backed off. And they took off. Stories about ghosts manipulating the behavior of animals is not new. It's every once in a while you will come across a ghost story where animals behave differently in the presence of a ghost or a ghost